Libra rising in Navamsha, manifestations. Libra to Libra, manifestation. The individual finds balance in relationships and social interactions, often seeking harmony and partnership as a key part of their life. If the Atma Karaka, soul significator, is placed here, marriage and relationships will significantly enhance their social standing and wealth. They may be involved in business partnerships with their spouse, leading to an affluent lifestyle. However, excessive wealth or indulgence can create imbalance in their marriage. Learning to manage the interplay between wealth and emotional connection is crucial for long-term relationship harmony. Libra to Scorpio. The individual experiences deep transformation through marriage or partnerships. They may have a fear of financial instability and often keep money hidden due to a lack of trust in their spouse's spending habits. These suspicions and financial concerns can cause tension in the relationship. However, transformation occurs after marriage, and through navigating these challenges, the individual gains greater insight into trust, power, and emotional depth within partnerships. Libra to Sagittarius, manifestation. The individual views marriage and relationships through a long-term lens, with a strong focus on commitment, rules, and stability. They are not interested in short-term flings and are always seeking long-term commitments in relationships. This structured approach can lead to solid, lasting partnerships, but it may also result in rigidity or inflexibility in personal relationships, where spontaneity and emotional expression might be lacking. They feel most secure when their relationships follow clear guidelines and boundaries. Libra to Capricorn. Manifestation. The individual feels a strong sense of duty and responsibility toward their spouse, often working hard for their partner's benefit. However, this sense of obligation can lead to disappointments, as they tend to expect relationships to follow a set of strict guidelines or rules. This can cause frustration when reality doesn't match their expectations. Their challenge is to learn how to balance personal desire with the need for control in relationships, and to avoid becoming overly rigid or dogmatic about how relationships should function. Libra to Aquarius. Manifestation. Relationships are viewed through a lens of practicality, with an emphasis on financial gain. The individual may approach relationships with a utilitarian mindset, seeing partnerships as a means to improve their financial status. They may avoid emotional involvement in relationships, focusing instead on how partnerships can contribute to their financial or social advancement. This detachment can cause emotional difficulties, and they must be cautious not to use relationships purely as a means for personal gain. Manifestation. The individual forms deep emotional connections with their spouse and may be prone to giving excessively in relationships, often at the expense of their own emotional or financial well-being. They have a compassionate, selfless approach to their partner, which can lead to imbalance if not carefully managed. While their emotional connection is profound, they must learn to set healthy boundaries and avoid giving too much of themselves, especially when it comes to financial support or emotional caretaking. Libra to Aries. Manifestation. The individual struggles with decision-making in relationships, often feeling confused by too many choices or distractions. They are natural problem solvers, particularly when it comes to resolving issues in their relationships. If the Atmakaraka is placed here, they may even pursue a career in relationship counseling or mediation. However, their tendency to be involved in multiple relationships or emotionally complex situations can create confusion and distraction. Their challenge is to focus on clear choices and avoid becoming overwhelmed by too many options. Libra to Taurus. Manifestation. The individual's financial situation improves significantly after marriage or business partnerships. They tend to view their partners as resources for financial gain and may rely heavily on their spouse's income. However, this can lead to a sense of entitlement and laziness where they avoid putting in the necessary effort themselves. Their challenge is to develop a stronger work ethic and avoid becoming complacent or overly dependent on their partner for financial stability. Libra to Gemini. Manifestation. The individual is highly skilled in marketing and communication, often advertising their business or professional pursuits with great success. They have a flair for presenting ideas in a charming and appealing way, though their ideas may not always be original. Their ability to communicate effectively and attract attention is one of their strongest assets, especially in business or social settings. However, they must ensure that their ideas are grounded in authenticity and not merely a facade for public approval. Manifestation with planetary placements: Libra to Scorpio. Libra to Libra, Sun. Leadership is expressed through diplomacy, charm, and fairness. The individual seeks recognition for creating harmony and balance in all areas of life, often excelling in roles that require negotiation or partnership. They may struggle with indecision or passivity when faced with difficult leadership choices. Their growth lies in learning to balance diplomacy with decisiveness. Moon. Emotional security is tied to harmony and relationships. The individual feels most emotionally fulfilled when they are in balanced, peaceful partnerships. However, they may struggle with emotional dependency, often relying too much on others' approval for their own emotional stability. The challenge is to find a balance between personal emotional needs and maintaining harmony in relationships. Mars. Energy is channeled into maintaining peace and balance in relationships. The individual is motivated to act in ways that foster harmony, often working to avoid conflict. However, this can lead to passive-aggressive behavior or avoidance of necessary confrontations. Their challenge is to address conflicts directly while maintaining harmony. Mercury. Communication is diplomatic and focused on creating understanding between parties. The individual excels in situations that require negotiation or mediation, using their intellect to ensure balanced conversations. However, they may become indecisive or hesitant in their communication when facing difficult conversations. Jupiter. Growth and expansion come through relationships, fairness, and diplomacy. The individual seeks to broaden their horizons by learning from others and forming partnerships that are mutually beneficial. However, they must avoid overdependence on relationships for growth, ensuring they pursue their own goals independently. Venus. Relationships are the focal point of this individual's life, with a strong emphasis on beauty, harmony, and mutual respect. They attract charming and diplomatic partners, but must be cautious of becoming too reliant on relationships for their sense of self-worth. The challenge is to balance their relationships with self-sufficiency. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are necessary for long-term stability in relationships. The individual may face delays or challenges in forming balanced partnerships, but will ultimately achieve stable, respectful relationships through patience and dedication. They need to learn to commit fully to their relationships while maintaining their independence. The individual is drawn to unconventional relationships or partnerships that challenge societal norms. These relationships may be exciting, but they can also bring instability if not grounded in emotional depth. They must be cautious of focusing on novelty over substance in their partnerships. Ketu. Detached from superficial relationship dynamics, the individual seeks deeper, more spiritual connections. They are less concerned with societal expectations around relationships and more focused on creating a balance within themselves before relying on others for emotional fulfillment. Libra to Scorpio. Leadership is expressed through emotional intensity and transformation. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to lead through deep emotional insight and strategic thinking. They may excel in roles that require control over difficult or emotionally charged situations, but must be cautious of becoming too controlling or secretive in their leadership style. Moon. Emotional security is tied to deep, transformative emotional connections. The individual finds comfort in intense relationships and emotionally charged experiences. However, they may struggle with emotional extremes, sometimes becoming overly attached to power dynamics in their relationships. Their growth comes from finding emotional stability while navigating intense feelings. Mars. Energy is channeled into emotionally driven pursuits, particularly those that involve transformation and control. The individual is highly motivated to take on challenges that require emotional strength and resilience. However, they must avoid becoming overly aggressive or manipulative when dealing with emotionally intense situations. Mercury. Communication is focused on uncovering hidden truths and navigating complex emotional topics. The individual excels in conversations that require deep emotional understanding or strategic thinking, but must guard against becoming too secretive or manipulative in their communication. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through emotional transformation and depth in relationships. The individual seeks to grow by engaging in emotionally intense experiences and forming deep, meaningful connections. However, they must guard against becoming overly attached to power or control in their relationships. Venus. Relationships are intense, passionate, and transformative. The individual is drawn to emotionally complex partnerships that challenge them to grow and evolve. However, they must be cautious of possessiveness or jealousy and learn to balance emotional intensity with emotional stability. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are required to manage emotional intensity and maintain emotional stability. The individual may face emotional challenges or delays in forming deep connections, but with patience and emotional maturity, they will develop resilience and depth in their relationships. Rahu. The individual may seek unconventional emotional experiences, often pursuing relationships that challenge traditional norms or bring emotional excitement. However, they must be cautious of becoming too focused on emotional intensity, as this can lead to instability. Ketu. Detached from surface-level emotions, the individual seeks deeper spiritual and emotional truths. They are less interested in casual relationships and more focused on exploring the deeper, transformative aspects of emotional connection and spiritual growth. Libra to Sagittarius. Leadership is expressed through wisdom, optimism, and a desire to inspire others. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to share knowledge and guide others, often excelling in roles that involve teaching, mentoring, or travel. However, they must guard against becoming overly idealistic or dogmatic in their beliefs, as this can alienate others or lead to conflicts in leadership situations. Moon. Emotional security is tied to intellectual freedom, adventure, and learning. The individual feels most at ease when they are exploring new ideas, traveling, or engaging in philosophical discussions. However, they may struggle with emotional detachment, sometimes prioritizing intellectual pursuits over emotional connections. Their growth lies in balancing intellectual stimulation with emotional depth in relationships. Mars. Energy is directed toward exploration, learning, and expanding one's horizons. The individual is passionate about pursuing knowledge and taking on new experiences, often excelling in fields related to education, travel, or philosophy. However, they must be cautious of becoming overly forceful or impatient in expressing their beliefs, as this can lead to conflicts, especially in intellectual debates. Mercury. Communication is focused on intellectual discussions and philosophical ideas. The individual excels at sharing knowledge and engaging in debates, often taking on the role of a teacher or guide. However, they must avoid being overly preachy or dogmatic in their communication, which can create misunderstandings or resistance from others. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through intellectual and spiritual exploration. The individual seeks to grow by engaging in learning, travel, or philosophical inquiry. However, they must be careful not to become too idealistic or disconnected from reality in their pursuit of higher knowledge, as this can limit their personal growth. Venus. Relationships are centered around shared intellectual pursuits, exploration, and adventure. The individual values partners who share their love for learning and expanding their horizons. However, they must be cautious of becoming too idealistic or placing unrealistic expectations on their partners, which can lead to disappointment in relationships. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are necessary for achieving long-term success in intellectual or philosophical pursuits. The individual may face challenges or delays in their learning or spiritual growth, but through perseverance and dedication, they will achieve mastery in their chosen field. Their challenge is to balance their desire for intellectual exploration with the patience needed for deep learning and personal growth. Rahu. The individual may seek unconventional intellectual experiences or spiritual journeys, often exploring new philosophies or beliefs that challenge traditional norms. However, they must guard against becoming too radical or disconnected from practical concerns in their pursuit of intellectual freedom. Ketu. Detached from materialistic concerns, the individual focuses on deeper spiritual exploration. They are less interested in conventional success and more focused on uncovering higher truths and spiritual wisdom. However, they must ensure they stay grounded while pursuing spiritual and intellectual growth. Libra to Capricorn. Sun. Leadership is expressed through discipline, responsibility, and long-term planning. The individual seeks recognition for their hard work and ability to lead with structure and efficiency, often excelling in roles that require management or governance. However, they must guard against becoming too rigid or authoritative in their leadership, as this can alienate others and limit their effectiveness. Moon. Emotional security is tied to stability, structure, and achieving long-term goals. The individual feels most secure when their life is organized and their plans are progressing steadily. However, they may struggle with emotional suppression, focusing too much on control and not enough on nurturing their emotional well-being. Learning to balance work with emotional expression is key to their growth. Mars. Energy is directed toward hard work, structure, and long-term success. The individual is highly motivated to achieve their goals through consistent effort and perseverance. However, they must avoid becoming overly rigid or demanding, especially when dealing with others who may not share their disciplined approach. Their challenge is to balance their drive for success with flexibility and emotional understanding. Mercury. Communication is structured, practical, and focused on achieving long-term objectives. The individual excels in roles that require detailed planning and organization, such as project management or law. However, they must guard against becoming too rigid or overly critical in their communication, especially when dealing with emotional or creative matters that require a more flexible approach. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through discipline, responsibility, and long-term planning. The individual seeks to broaden their horizons by mastering a specific skill or achieving long-term success through structured efforts. However, they must guard against becoming overly focused on material success or rigidly attached to their routines, as this can hinder their personal growth. Venus. Relationships are built on stability, responsibility, and mutual support. The individual values partners who are dependable and share their long-term goals. However, they must avoid becoming too emotionally distant or overly focused on practical matters, as this can create emotional distance in their relationships. They need to cultivate emotional warmth and openness alongside their practical approach. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are at the core of the individual's approach to both work and relationships. They take their duties seriously and are committed to achieving long-term success. However, they may face delays or challenges in their personal or professional life, learning through perseverance and resilience. Their challenge is to avoid becoming overly pessimistic or self-critical when faced with obstacles. Ra. The individual is drawn to unconventional paths of success and responsibility, often exploring new and innovative ways to achieve their goals. However, they must be cautious of cutting corners or becoming overly focused on untested methods, as this can lead to instability in their career or personal life. Ketu. Detached from traditional career aspirations, the individual focuses more on spiritual growth and inner development rather than material success. They may feel disconnected from the pursuit of wealth or status, preferring instead to explore deeper meanings and insights within their work and relationships. Libra to Aquarius. Leadership is expressed through innovation, intellect, and a focus on societal progress. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to think ahead and bring about change, often excelling in roles that require forward thinking and unconventional ideas. However, they must guard against becoming too detached or overly idealistic in their leadership, as this can distance them from practical realities or the needs of the people they lead. Moon. Emotional security is tied to intellectual freedom and social progress. The individual feels most at ease when they are engaged in meaningful intellectual work or contributing to a cause greater than themselves. However, they may struggle with emotional detachment, often prioritizing intellectual stimulation over emotional connection in their personal relationships. Their growth lies in balancing intellectual pursuits with emotional depth. Mars' energy is directed toward innovation, intellectual pursuits, and social reform. The individual is passionate about making a difference and is driven by their desire to improve the world. However, they must be cautious of becoming too radical or detached from the practical aspects of implementing their ideas. Their challenge is to balance their idealism with practicality. Mercury. Communication is sharp, forward-thinking, and focused on innovation. The individual excels in intellectual discussions and thrives in environments that encourage exploration of new ideas. However, they must avoid becoming too detached from emotional concerns or too radical in their viewpoints, which can alienate others or make it difficult to gain support for their ideas. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through intellectual exploration and societal progress. The individual seeks to broaden their horizons by learning, teaching, and exploring new ideas, often focusing on how they can improve the world around them. However, they must guard against becoming overly idealistic or disconnected from practical realities, as this can limit their personal and professional growth. Venus. Relationships are centered around intellectual connection and mutual respect for each other's ideas and personal freedom. The individual values partners who encourage their desire for innovation and social progress. However, they must avoid becoming emotionally detached or too focused on intellectual compatibility, as this can create emotional distance in relationships. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are key in achieving long-term success in intellectual or social pursuits. The individual may face delays or challenges in bringing their innovative ideas to fruition, but through perseverance and dedication, they will achieve lasting impact. Their challenge is to balance their idealism with practical action and emotional engagement. Rahu. The individual may be drawn to unconventional intellectual paths or radical ideas, often challenging traditional societal norms. However, they must guard against becoming too extreme or disconnected from reality, as this can lead to instability in their career or personal life. Ketu. Detached from conventional thinking, the individual seeks deeper spiritual truths and intellectual freedom. They are less interested in following traditional paths and more focused on exploring new ideas and philosophies. However, they must ensure that they remain grounded while pursuing their intellectual and spiritual growth. Libra to Pisces. Sun. Leadership is expressed through compassion, creativity, and a focus on helping others. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to inspire and guide people through emotional or spiritual means, often excelling in roles that involve healing, art, or service. However, they must guard against becoming too idealistic or emotionally overwhelmed in their leadership roles, as this can lead to confusion or unrealistic expectations. Moon. Emotional security is tied to emotional and spiritual fulfillment. The individual feels emotionally fulfilled when they are able to connect deeply with others and contribute to their emotional well-being. However, they may struggle with emotional boundaries, becoming too absorbed in the emotions of others or losing themselves in their desire to help. Their growth lies in learning to care for themselves while still being compassionate toward others. Mars. Energy is channeled into creative, emotional, or spiritual pursuits. The individual is motivated by their desire to help others, often excelling in roles related to art, healing, or spiritual work. However, they must be cautious of becoming too emotionally drained or overwhelmed by the needs of others, as this can lead to burnout. Their challenge is to balance their selflessness with self-care. Mercury. Communication is imaginative, empathetic, and often focused on emotional or spiritual topics. The individual excels in creative fields or roles that require emotional intelligence, such as counseling, art, or spiritual guidance. However, they must avoid becoming too vague or emotionally driven in their communication, as this can lead to misunderstandings or confusion in both personal and professional relationships. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through emotional and spiritual exploration. The individual seeks to broaden their horizons by engaging in compassionate work or developing their creative talents. However, they must guard against becoming too idealistic or losing touch with reality in their pursuit of emotional or spiritual fulfillment. Venus. Relationships are centered around deep emotional connection, compassion, and shared spiritual values. The individual values partners who are emotionally and spiritually in tune with them. However, they must avoid becoming too emotionally dependent or self-sacrificing in their relationships, as this can lead to imbalance and emotional exhaustion. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are necessary for achieving long-term emotional and spiritual growth. The individual may face emotional challenges or delays in finding fulfillment, but through patience and emotional resilience, they will develop greater emotional strength and spiritual understanding. Rahu. The individual may pursue unconventional emotional or spiritual experiences, often exploring new ways of connecting with others or expressing compassion. However, they must be cautious of becoming too idealistic or disconnected from reality, as this can lead to confusion or instability in their emotional life. Ketu detached from worldly concerns, the individual focuses on spiritual growth and emotional depth. They are less interested in material success and more focused on finding deeper meaning and spiritual fulfillment. However, they must ensure that they remain grounded in practical realities while pursuing their emotional and spiritual journey. Libra. Leadership is expressed through bold, decisive actions, often focused on resolving conflicts and finding quick solutions. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to take charge in challenging situations, especially when things need immediate attention. However, they must be careful not to become too impulsive or aggressive, especially in relationships. The challenge is to balance their assertiveness with diplomacy and consideration for others, ensuring they don't alienate those they lead or partner with. Moon. Emotional security comes from taking action and asserting independence. The individual feels fulfilled when they are actively solving problems or defending their personal autonomy. However, they may struggle with emotional volatility or impatience, especially if their needs are not met quickly. They must learn to temper their emotional reactions and balance their need for independence with emotional vulnerability in relationships. Mars. Energy is directed toward quick, assertive actions, often aimed at solving relationship issues or initiating new partnerships. The individual is highly motivated to take the lead and make decisions, but they must guard against acting too impulsively or aggressively, particularly in personal relationships. They need to focus on balancing their drive for action with consideration for long-term harmony. Mercury. Communication is sharp, direct, and action-oriented. The individual is quick to express their opinions and take the lead in conversations, especially in matters of conflict resolution or negotiation. However, they must be cautious of speaking too bluntly or without thinking, as this can create unnecessary tension in their relationships. The challenge is to balance assertive communication with diplomacy. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through bold actions and personal independence. The individual seeks to grow by asserting themselves in leadership roles and taking on new challenges, particularly in partnerships. However, they must guard against overconfidence and ensure they balance their desire for independence with collaborative growth in their relationships. Venus. Relationships are dynamic and marked by intensity and passion. The individual values partners who are assertive and challenging, but they may struggle with maintaining harmony if they become too focused on winning or dominating in relationships. Learning to balance passion with cooperation and emotional sensitivity is key to their relational growth. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are necessary to manage the individual's strong will and assertiveness in relationships. They may face delays or obstacles in partnerships if they are too impulsive or fail to consider the long-term consequences of their actions. Their growth comes from learning patience and balancing their drive for action with steady, thoughtful leadership. Rahu. The individual may be drawn to unconventional or risky forms of leadership or action, particularly in relationships. They are likely to take bold steps that challenge traditional norms, but must be cautious of becoming too erratic or disruptive, which could lead to instability. Ketu. Detached from traditional ideas of leadership and dominance, the individual may focus more on spiritual or philosophical approaches to solving problems. They are less concerned with personal success and more interested in finding balance and harmony in their relationships through a deeper, introspective approach. Libra to Taurus. Sun. Leadership is expressed through stability, practicality, and a focus on building secure, long-lasting partnerships. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to create a comfortable and reliable environment, especially in relationships and financial matters. However, they must guard against becoming too materialistic or rigid, as this can hinder emotional intimacy and personal growth. Moon. Emotional security is tied to material comfort and stability in relationships. The individual feels fulfilled when they have a reliable partner and a stable home environment, but they may struggle with emotional stagnation if they become too attached to material possessions or routines. Learning to balance emotional needs with the desire for security is key to their growth. Mars. Energy is directed toward building and maintaining stability, particularly in finances and relationships. The individual is motivated to work hard and create a solid foundation for their life, but they must be careful not to become too possessive or resistant to change. They need to balance their drive for stability with adaptability and emotional openness. Mercury. Communication is practical, focused on financial security, and often revolves around ensuring stability in relationships and business partnerships. The individual excels at negotiating and managing resources, but may struggle with emotional expression, particularly if they become too focused on material concerns. They need to learn how to integrate emotional depth into their practical conversations. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through long-term planning, financial security, and stable relationships. The individual seeks to grow by building a strong foundation in their personal and professional life, but they must avoid becoming too cautious or resistant to change, as this can prevent them from taking the necessary risks for personal development. Venus. Relationships are built on mutual support, comfort, and material security. The individual values partners who can provide stability and reliability, but must guard against becoming too focused on material comfort at the expense of emotional connection. Learning to balance material and emotional needs is key to maintaining fulfilling relationships. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility are required to achieve long-term stability and success in practical matters. The individual may face delays or challenges in building financial security or achieving relationship goals, but through patience and perseverance, they will create a stable, supportive environment. Their growth lies in learning to manage their expectations and remain flexible. Rahu. The individual may be drawn to unconventional methods of achieving material success or building relationships, often taking risks or exploring new ventures. However, they must guard against becoming too focused on material gain, which can lead to imbalance in their emotional and relational life. Ketu. Detached from material concerns, the individual may focus more on spiritual or emotional growth rather than accumulating wealth or possessions. They may feel disconnected from the pursuit of material success and are more interested in finding deeper meaning and emotional fulfillment through relationships. Their challenge is to balance their inner development with the practical realities of life. Libra to Gemini. Sun. Leadership is expressed through communication, intellect, and adaptability. The individual seeks recognition for their ability to connect with others through words and ideas, often excelling in environments that require networking, negotiation, or intellectual exchange. However, they must guard against being too scattered or superficial, as this can prevent them from making impactful decisions. Their challenge is to balance their intellectual flexibility with decisiveness and focus. Moon. Emotional security is tied to communication, intellectual engagement, and social interaction. The individual feels emotionally fulfilled when they are mentally stimulated and connected to others through conversation and shared ideas. However, They may struggle with emotional inconsistency or detachment, especially if they rely too much on intellectual stimulation over emotional depth. Their growth lies in balancing their mental agility with emotional vulnerability. Mars. Energy is channeled into communication, learning, and social interaction. The individual is highly motivated to exchange ideas, solve problems, and engage in intellectual challenges. They are quick thinkers and often thrive in roles that require multitasking and adaptability. However, they must guard against becoming too reactive or scattered in their efforts, which can lead to frustration. Their challenge is to focus their energy on meaningful conversations and relationships without becoming distracted by superficial matters. Mercury. Communication is fast-paced, witty, and central to the individual's success. They excel in environments that require constant communication, such as teaching, writing, or public relations. However, they must be cautious of becoming too focused on intellectual pursuits at the expense of emotional connection. They need to learn how to balance their sharp intellect with empathy and emotional insight in their conversations. Jupiter. Growth and expansion are achieved through intellectual exploration, learning, and communication. The individual seeks to grow by expanding their knowledge, engaging in diverse experiences, and forming connections with others. However, they must be cautious of spreading themselves too thin or becoming overly reliant on mental stimulation for personal fulfillment. Their challenge is to dive deeper into subjects and relationships to gain a more meaningful understanding. Venus. Relationships are centered around intellectual compatibility, communication, and shared interests. The individual values partners who can engage them in stimulating conversations and share their love of learning. However, they must guard against becoming too focused on intellectual connections at the expense of emotional intimacy. Learning to balance intellectual stimulation with emotional vulnerability is key to creating fulfilling relationships. Saturn. Discipline and responsibility in intellectual pursuits and communication are necessary for long-term success. The individual may face challenges in focusing their mental energy or maintaining consistency in their learning or communication efforts, but through perseverance and dedication, they will develop mastery over their intellectual abilities. Their growth lies in balancing flexibility with focus and ensuring their communication is both thoughtful and impactful. Rahu. The individual may be drawn to unconventional ideas, communication styles, or learning paths. They are likely to challenge traditional ways of thinking and explore new forms of communication, but they must guard against becoming too erratic or ungrounded in their intellectual pursuits. Stability and consistency are key to ensuring their ideas have lasting impact. Key. Detached from superficial or traditional modes of communication, the individual seeks deeper philosophical or spiritual truths. They may feel disconnected from surface-level interactions and are more interested in exploring profound ideas and concepts. Their challenge is to integrate these deeper insights with practical communication in their everyday life.